Hello, today we are going to talk about exposure triangle. So exposure triangle has three components. One, we have the aperture. Second, we have the ISO. And third, we have the shutter speed. So how do we use these components in doing photography and videography? So ISO is like the amount, it's the sensitivity of light. So the higher the ISO, the higher the sensitivity to light, the lowest being maybe 50 for advanced cameras and 100 for the beginner cameras. And for the higher end, it goes up to 104,000. As of I know now, but in future maybe it can go past that. Then we have the aperture. Aperture is it comes with the lens, so it is represented in terms of f-stops. So we have from f 0.9 to f 32 for the lenses I know as of the moment. And for the shutter speed, we have as low as 30 seconds. It goes up to 1/10,000 of a second. And that is the three components that makes up the exposure triangle. So how do we use these components? One, when you are shooting, so aperture controls the depth. That is like what is in focus. Can you see everything that is within your view? If it is for a thing that you want to be in focus and the rest not to be in focus, you can just use a low aperture. That's like f 1.2, 1.4 up to around 4.5 thereof. So that one, you'll be having only one subject in focus and the others will not be in focus. And that is used for portrait photography, studio shoots, uh, for product shoots, for food, and everything that requires like uh, only a specific detail to be shown in the frame. And for other things like landscapes, everything should be seen. Like when you are shooting, maybe you have gone for hiking and you want to show something like a tip of a mountain, so you can use now a higher f-stop like f16, f10, thereof, anything that works for you. So that one now will make everything that is within your view to be in clear focus. And also for group photos, maybe you are shooting a corporate family photos, and maybe you are also doing something that does like with people moving around, maybe something like a game. Maybe you are having a hockey game, table tennis. You want everything to be seen, so you can use that one, like the higher f-stops. And that is all for the f-stops. It controls depth and what is in focus. And another thing, the lower the f-stop, the higher the amount of light that comes into the lens. So the light that will be coming into the camera will be higher with a lower f-stop. And for a lower f-stop, it's a shallow focus. Only one thing may be in focus and the rest are not in focus. And let's now move to shutter speed. Shutter speed is the speed of this shutter. Shutter is something that opens and closes for the sensor to capture an image. So the amount of speed determines what comes into the sensor. And for a higher shutter speed, it means that little light will come into the light and motion will be stopped. So if you are in a gaming scenario, maybe you are shooting athletes, sports cars, and maybe racing bikes. So when you use a higher speed, maybe 1/1000, you'll get a still image, yet there was movement. Maybe you are shooting in a place where there is a fan, so you can try this within your room or somewhere where you have something that is in motion, maybe a car. So you can shoot with a higher shutter speed to freeze motion, And for something like you are shooting maybe a waterfall, you can use like a lower shutter speed to create like a dreamy effect. So that one will allow more light to come in and there will be no freezing of motion. So you'll have something that looks like it's a ghost-like effect. So even for night shoots, maybe you can try this. You have seen some photos that are taken in the night. Maybe you are on a tower and you are facing a road down below. You can just set up your camera and maybe put it for two 2 second shot. So that one will take a photo that has a continuous streaming of light into the sensor. And that is how now the shutter speed makes the exposure triangle. The lower the shutter speed, that's maybe a 30-second, 5-second, 2-second, 1 second, allows more light. And the higher the shutter speed, the lower the light that comes in. So you can use 1/1000, 1/4000, 1/8000 to allow very little light. Maybe you are shooting during the afternoon hours and you are using maybe uh, a lower f-stop. So you need to increase the shutter speed to something maybe 1/4000 to compensate for the much amount of light that is coming in by using a lower f-stop. And now let's move on to ISO. So for ISO, we have like ISO 100 to ISO 104,000. For a lower ISO, it allows less light to come into the camera, and that works good for shots that you are shooting during the day when there is a lot of sunlight, or maybe you are in a room where there's plenty of light. You can use a lower f-stop, a lower ISO of maybe 50, 100, 200, 400. And for the higher ISO, it introduces grain, and it has something like it allows more light to come into the sensor. So it comes with grain effect, and allows more light. So you can combine now the three features to make up the exposure triangle. You have your ISO, f-stop, and shutter speed. So for the ISO, you may use a lower ISO and maybe a lower f-stop, and use a higher shutter speed to make a correct exposure for an image. And you may continue to experiment as you go on until you now learn how you can balance them during different occasions and different scenarios when you are in your shooting. And we'll pick up from there. See you.